Hey guys, it's M4J here, and welcome back to the Jeffries Network on OpenTTD. It's a short episode today, 20 minutes if that, really, because all I'm doing is just extending this third rail line from Fort Flunwood down to the Great Western Line and then extending it onwards to the south. Pretty much like I said last episode. The only reason this episode is sort of longer, it should be shorter really if I'm doing it as a usual time lapse. You can see the time lapse is actually a bit slower than normal, but I wanted to give myself a little bit of extra time just to give you the next hint as to what episode 200 is going to be. The first thing I will say is episode 200 will involve the line that I am building in today's episode, which is why it's crucial that I built it first. It's to do with big construction projects, as I revealed in the last episode. It's also to do with trains. That is something that, I suppose that's the next spoiler really. It's to do with railways. But you kind of probably would have already guessed that, given the fact that I've said in the past that I'm going back to predominantly building railways in this series for the next goodness knows how long. One thing I would also like to say is the new map, the new thumbnail. It probably won't be ready for episode 200. I've already had a conversation with Reedy about that. It's not a problem. I was actually planning on using the current thumbnail past episode 200 as well, to at least episode 225. One of the things I would say is Reedy has already informed me that it will take longer than usual to create the map, which I'm fully understanding of, because we both seem to have busy years ahead of us, so that doesn't seem to be a problem. As far as I'm concerned anyway, it's not a problem. He's shown me some previews. That's what I wanted to talk about. Now, I suppose for you guys, you see the thumbnail and you look at the map. And I know that some people have also had a go at creating their own maps. It's not easy. I'll tell you that now, it's not easy. The reason I know it's not easy is because I get to see the behind the scenes work, or at least some of the behind the scenes work that Reedy does. Usually when he starts the map, sort of the first few days after he started making the map, I get sent loads of like font styles, colour, charts, all that kind of thing, and I choose which colours I want to see on the map. That's how I know it's not easy, because the amount of thought and effort that goes into creating those maps is astounding, really. You know, even I have to admit, I misjudged it when Reedy first offered to make the map. I thought it was just, you know, you go on a piece of drawing software, you draw some different coloured lines, and you add some different coloured splots, and that's your map. But no, I was wrong. There is a lot of thought that goes into it. Just things like the types of font, how the colours are chosen. You don't just choose a yellow, you choose a specific shade of yellow, and then you try and match all the other colours to suit that. Also things like, because I've split the South Bank line into east and west, we've actually chosen two different shades of the same colour to use on the east side and the west side. And just little details like that that I wouldn't really have thought about before. There's a lot of work that goes into those maps. That's why I'm always appreciative of the effort that goes into creating the maps. But I do just want to tell you guys a little bit more about the behind the scenes, so that you can understand why, when episode 200 rolls around, we're still using the same thumbnail. It will get changed, just not just yet. Also, something else I want to point out, that thing you can see in the top left corner, that train that's running, that's a little experiment that I'm running. It's not the Royal train, I think it's a shorter version. It's like a DB Schenker executive train. Observation train, I think is probably the correct term. Where I don't think I've ever seen this in real life, but I know one exists because I've seen pictures of it, but I've never actually seen it when I'm out and about. They do have their own little observation car. They'll go and assess the network. You know, Network Rail have theirs, obviously they have the measurement trains and things like that, but individual train companies can have their own as well. I think if you go right the way back to sort of the big four, they all had their own observation cars. Sometimes it was just for, so you can see the scenery as you go past. Sometimes it was so the executives can survey the route as they're going along. But anyway, I'm using the train as an experiment. I'm trying to see how long it takes for a single train to do a tour of the entire network. And I say the entire network, I'm leaving out the Western Reaches line, because although the top speed of this train is 125 miles per hour, I'm having a few problems with trains bunching up on the Western Reaches line, particularly on the north section of the coastal route, which I do have this train run along, but hopefully it doesn't get held up too much. I'm not saying this is part of episode 200 because chances are it won't be, but I might do a one-off special in the near future where I'll do a whole route surveillance, because I know that people do like that kind of thing. I've said I'm sort of straying away from it a little bit more now because I've done it a lot for the last few sort of milestone episodes, so I wanted to do something a little bit different. I've not got a problem doing one as just a normal episode and not have it as a celebration episode, but I do think that especially celebrating 200, it's such a monumentous milestone in any series. It seems a bit sort of lazy just to do the same thing over and over again. But I do like sitting back and watching my network, and particularly over the last few days I've tried to find somewhere on the network where I can just sit and watch and there be the most trains run past. And to be perfectly honest, there isn't that many places where that's possible. We don't have that many trains on the network, really. We have over 700 in total, but the way they're all spread out, you only really have, I think it's a maximum of 15 on any particular service, and most of my main lines only have 3 or 4 services running on them. So that's only, what, 45 trains? Somewhere between 45 and 60 trains running on the route at any one time. That's not that many. When you sort of compare that to some of the other main lines in the UK, there really isn't that many. Plus there's the fact that not all trains go through the particular stations on the line. Sometimes they terminate before, sometimes they go straight through, so you barely have time to see them. So I thought the best way to survey the route would be to do it the old-fashioned way and actually have a special train that goes and runs the route. What I might do actually is swap this one out for the Royal train, because it does have the same top speed. The only reason I faltered on that initially is because the Royal train is 5.5 tiles long, which is longer than an HST. And I don't think, especially on the Guard City Eastern line, I don't think we have any platforms that are long enough. Let me just check that. Let's see. Over here. 1, 2, 3. Oh, I do have one that's long enough. Okay, I might do that then, because I think all the other lines do have 6 long platforms, especially over at Munfingfield. I'm trying to follow the right line. There it is. Is it Munfingfield? Munfingford. Sorry, Munfingford. And yes, that one looks like it's long enough as well. Okay, so it looks like we could actually swap that out for the Royal train. So I'm going to do that. You can't see me doing it, but I am doing it on screen right now. So if you ever get to see this, which you will, don't worry, it will be running as a Royal train. Anyway, so this line that we're building here, it's a little line down from Fort Flunwood. It's actually one of the main trunk routes of the map. I'm considering making it at least. So it's going to be like the Brighton main line, which really is the core main line between London and the south coast. I know there's other things like you know, the lines out of, well, I was about to say the lines out of Victoria, but the Brighton main line is a line out of Victoria. The lines out of Waterloo, the lines out of London Bridge, Charing Cross, I know you said Fenchurch Street, that's not the right one. Cannon Street. I always forget the name of Cannon Street. I don't know why. I always forget the name of it though. But really the Brighton main line is the core route. It's the Thameslink route, it's the southern route. It actually has a lot of traffic running on it. It's also probably one of the straightest main lines I think I've ever seen. It has got curves, obviously. All main lines have curves, but that sounds like some kind of weird marketing campaign. All main lines have curves. Real main lines have curves. No, it's very sort of direct, and I guess there isn't that many obstacles in the way. There's a few big hills that they've tunneled under. That's me moving my laptop. Apologies for that. There is some tunnels that they have going through hills, big hills, but it is quite a relatively straightforward, straight as the crow flies kind of route. So I kind of wanted to replicate that. This route is not straight and as the crow flies, as you can see there's plenty of curves, but wanting to use it as a trunk route, especially as it doesn't just connect to the line to Fort Flunwood, but it does also connect to the Great Western Line. There's a real opportunity there to create this trunk route that a huge number of trains would follow. At this point it does go from 4 tracks down to 2, The slow lines being the lines on the left. It's the opposite of the way that the Great Western Line is, because it's technically a U-bend where the two lines meet. You can see here, in fact, it's a total U-bend. But I do want to. I like the little 2-track main lines that I've been building in the last few episodes as well. So I did want to have it go from 4 tracks down to 2, somewhere where it's kind of the traffic is a little bit more sparse. So down here would seem like a really perfect opportunity. There's 3 big towns. It's technically an interchange station, and in the little gap that we've got left over here, I wanted to build a little sort of storage siding area so that trains off the fast line and the slow line could run into there and clear the platforms for trains that aren't terminating here and then go back. Obviously there's the whole thing of I still can't get trains to reverse in stations, which is incredibly annoying. I really wish that I could find a solution to that problem. Again, I'll do a little shout out for that. If anyone can help me with that particular problem. I have got it set so that trains should be able to reverse in stations, and yet I keep experimenting with it to see if I'm doing something wrong, and I'm still yet to find the missing link, like what exactly is causing it to not work properly. So if anyone out there has had similar problems, or if anyone out there has had the problem and has fixed it, or if anyone has I don't know, insider knowledge, let's say, as to maybe there's a line in a config file that I need to change. I don't know. I think I've checked that. I'm sure I've checked that, and it's set to false, which is the default setting, which is basically the setting is disallow reversing in stations. So the default setting is false, which means that setting is not switched on, which means trains should be able to reverse at stations because it's not being forbidden. And yet for some reason when I try and do it, it comes up saying forbidden. Or, you know, it seems to be acting as though it's forbidden because trains continue straight on. I do think my sort of go-to logic at the moment is that I've done something with the signal programming, the way that I've got some signals set up that it would only allow trains through in certain directions if that's their next order kind of thing. I'm wondering if that's maybe messing it up, but on one of the tests I did have it as it will only let the train through if the next order was the order that it just come from, so in other words reversing. And then I also had the little bit at the bottom that said if entry direction is from the front then just allow it, and it didn't reverse, it carried on going in the forwards direction, which is not really what I wanted it to do. So yeah, if anyone can help me out with that, even offering some advice. It's not necessarily the end of the world. I think I've said this before anyway, but it's not necessarily the end of the world that I have to build storage sidings everywhere, because in real life there are sidings at most terminating stations, especially stations that aren't built as terminus stations. So Hayes and Harlington is one that springs to mind on the Great Western Main Line. Huntingdon on the East Coast Main Line is another good example where trains terminate there, but there's sort of there's a maneuver in which trains are sort of moved out of the main line to allow other trains through. That's kind of what I'm replicating with these storage sidings. It is exactly that. It's where the trains go when they're not being used, waiting for their next order. You know, even the Waterloo and City line in London, it's a 2-station line, but once the train arrives at Waterloo, it goes into a little storage siding at the back, sits there, and then waits for its next journey. So yeah, it's not the end of the world, but I would like to be able to have some stations where trains just reverse, especially as I'm trying to make the network more intensive. I'm trying to make it more realistic, so you have trains that do just terminate at what seems to be random stations. Obviously in real life it's to do with demographics, where people get on, where people get off, service patterns. It's really what I want to replicate, but I'm finding it very difficult to do that now, because every station where I want to have a terminating service, I then have to either redesign the station so that there's a bay platform, or put in these storage sidings on the opposite side, which then means I have to do the same on both sides if I'm planning on having trains terminate in both directions, and it can be a bit of a pain. So as I say, if anyone has a fix for that, I would really appreciate that. But I'll leave it open for now. If anyone wants to help, it's entirely up to you. If you can help, that is. Anyway, what else should I be talking about? There's not a lot else really. I've sort of spoken about the future of the series in the last couple of episodes. I've dropped a couple of hints for episode 200. I've explained what's going on in this episode. I suppose the next thing I should talk about is I have built, again on the topic of terminating trains, I have built a little storage siding area at GSG for third rail trains, because it's something that I'd sort of, a bit of an oversight from me really. On the last map we did have that little storage siding. We had trains that run from the south of Guard City through GSMA, through Guard City Exchange as it was then, now it's Guard Lake, into GSG, and then they'd run into that siding to reverse back into the departure platform to head back south. I've built that again on this map, but I have built it in a slightly different way. It's a 4-track siding. It's built right next to the freight terminal, which itself might need a bit of a revamp over the next few episodes, because freight terminal, especially with food trains and manufacturing supplies and all that stuff, is getting quite congested. So I might need to reboot that a little bit. But the storage siding, it's kind of been built as a modern style shed, like a train shed. So the trains will run in there, they'll sit and wait their next turn, and then they'll go back out to the south. The reason I've done that is we have 3 main lines that come out of GSMA, or 3 routes I should say, or 3 lines. They're not main lines. You've got the fast and slow that head down towards Rinston, Great Rinston, and then Fort Flunwood via the 2 different branches. And then you also have the line that goes through Shoreham Junction, and at the moment sort of does a long route all the way around to Rinston Airport, but will also continue down to the south in the future, and that will actually connect up with the other side of Fort Flunwood. So that might be built over the next couple of episodes as well. I haven't fully planned it out yet, but it just means that there's lots and lots of possibilities for trains that would be coming into the southern end of Guard City, and actually having them be able to run all the way up to GSG and terminate there seemed like a logical solution, because GSMA, as good a station as it is with the through platforms and the terminating platforms, it's been quite difficult to plan out exactly how services are going to operate into and out of GSMA without rebuilding the station, especially ones that come from Fort Flunwood and also that come through the express tracks from Shoreham Junction as well. I have, however, started adding in some more. I've got them categorized as Guard City Overground, but I'm thinking of sort of declassifying them slightly and having them just as suburban services that start within Guard City. Because you've got like the DC lines out of GSG that are definitely part of the Overground network. This seems a bit more of a suburban route, kind of like Southwest Trains, their metro services. So it's not really part of the Overground, but it has the same kind of stopping pattern as the Overground. I've got one that comes out of GSMA and runs down to I can't remember the name of the place now, but we did have a service that ran from actually no, I don't think we did. No, we didn't. We did have a service once upon a time that ran all the way from GSG all the way down to this station, but I took it out because it required some complex platform maneuvers at Shoreham Junction. This is just straightforward. It runs from the left 3 terminating platforms at GSMA through Shoreham Junction and down to the south to a station I can't remember the name of right now. We also have another one that starts at is it Wolveringham Overground, the terminating overground station on the east side of the map, that's just slightly north of Woodside. It starts from there, and that one goes all the way down to one of the lines that parallels the HLR. And again, I can't remember the name of the station. I need to start memorizing these names. I'll keep going to compile a list of all the stations so that we could do the 3-letter abbreviations, not have repeat ones. But so far I've managed to avoid it by memory, and it's kind of a laziness as to why I haven't gone ahead and done that. But I know I'm going to have to do that soon, so I might put that in the description of future episodes as well if people want to check that out. Just view it, of course, not edit it. But yeah, we have some more services running in and out of GSG. I always said that GSG wasn't really finished, and that kind of proves it, because I'm still finding myself adding more services, and there's still more to come. There's another couple of lines out of GSMA that still need to be done. Anyway, this episode is just about run its course. As I said, it's a short one this week, or a short one this Monday. There will be a longer one on Friday. I had a busy weekend, which made it quite difficult. I kind of warned you of that in advance on Monday, but there you go. But I'm going to end the episode here, guys, so thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to leave a like if you enjoyed the video, and of course if you're enjoying the series. Drop some comments down below with ideas for future episodes. If you haven't already subscribed to the channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button. If you have already subscribed to the channel, thank you guys for your continued support. And until next time, I will see you soon.